Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of How She Moved the Music Notes. My name is Tila Pizzatella. In this episode, I will be discussing the genre of rock and roll and singer-songwriter and one of Fleetwood Mac's female leads, Stevie Nicks. The genre of rock and roll began in the 1940s and 1950s, gaining its influence by the rhythm and blues, country music, and church music that was popular at the time. Many instruments that were popular in rhythm and blues carried over into the genre of rock and roll, such as intense sounds like electric guitars, bass guitars, acoustic guitars, and even sometimes featuring bold piano sounds that would intensify the song. In the 1950s and 60s, the genre was very male-dominated, with artists such as Chuck Berry, Little Richard, and even Elvis Presley being very popular. In the 1960s, the British invasion saw the emergence of the Beatles and other bands from the United Kingdom, where they took rock and roll worldwide. In the 1970s, rock and roll experienced a major revival with the emergence of glam rock, punk, and hard rock. Artists such as David Bowie, Led Zeppelin, Queen, and the Rolling Stones helped to shape the genre and make it more popular. In the 1980s, the genre experienced a decline in popularity, but experienced a resurgence in the 1990s when grunge, alternative rock, and Britpop were introduced. And as rock entered the 2000s, they began to see the birth of pop punk and indie rock, as well as the return of classic rock. With the emergence of these genres and subgenres, we see as to why rock and roll will always be an ever-changing landscape of music. Rock and roll will always be a popular genre and continue to be appreciated by many. One fun fact about rock and roll is located in Cleveland, Ohio, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is a museum and hall of fame dedicated to the best known and most influential artists, producers, music engineers, and other notable figures in rock and roll. One notable figure featured in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is none other than Stevie Nicks. She was inducted into the Hall of Fame with Fleetwood Mac in 1998 and in 2019 as a solo artist. As being the first woman inducted into the Hall of Fame twice, I felt it was only right to give her a well-deserved spotlight. To get started into the look of Stevie Nicks, we will begin with her early life before she was known as the gypsy she is. Entering this world as Stephanie Nicks, she was born in Phoenix, Arizona in 1948. As her father was the vice president of Greyhound, the bus transportation, she moved around a lot as a young child. When Stevie was 4 years old, her grandfather A.J. Nicks Sr. taught her how to sing. At the age of 17, she met her future musical and romantic partner. Lindsey Buckingham was 16 when he met Stevie Nicks at 17. They were at a party in San Francisco where his band Fritz was performing. Stevie jumped on stage and sang California Dreamin' by the Mamas and Papas with Lindsey. After that night, the two didn't see each other for 2 years until the drummer of Lindsey's band, Fritz, called Stevie and asked her to join the band. In 1967, Stevie became the lead singer of Fritz. The band opened for Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin. Stevie credits Janis Joplin for teaching her that small women can walk on stage with a big attitude, and credits Jimi for teaching her flamboyancy with humility. As Lindsey and Stevie were both attending San Jose State University, they both dropped out and continued to perform and write music after the band Fritz broke up. In 1973, they got their first record deal and released Buckingham Nicks. At this time, Stevie and Lindsey were working multiple jobs, waiting tables and cleaning houses. The duo would not be discovered by Mick Fleetwood until he heard a demo of their Frozen Love. Fleetwood was looking for a guitarist for his band, and Mick offered Lindsey the chance to join Fleetwood Mac. As a package deal, Lindsey refused to join without Stevie. Mick Fleetwood agreed to bring them both into the band. While Lindsey was initially reluctant to join Fleetwood Mac and give up their duo, Stevie was not so reluctant. Stevie bluntly stated that she was tired of being a waitress, so they say the rest is history. In 1975, Fleetwood Mac released their first self-titled album, Fleetwood Mac. This is the first Fleetwood Mac album with Stevie as a member. Two of Stevie's most iconic songs, Landslide and Rhiannon, were recorded as a part of this album. Rolling Stones has voted Rhiannon as one of the 500 greatest songs of all time. At this time, Stevie also created her signature style with the help of dressmaker Margie Kent. In the book Gold Dust Woman, we learn that Stevie wanted what she called a uniform, meaning a stage outfit that would get her through her occasional bouts of stage fright that came with playing big places. She told Margie Kent that she wanted something urchin-like, out of an English street urchin look. The English slang urchin is described as a young child who is dirty or poorly dressed. Stevie then drew a stick figure of what she had in mind, a dress under a jacket with long droopy sleeves like bat wings. Stevie also began wearing platform boots that a famous Hollywood cobbler made for her because she did not want to wear high heels. They came up with the outfit: a leotard, a chiffon wrap blouse, short tailored jackets, 2 skirts, and velvet boots. This bohemian style also utilized Stevie's famous shawls and top hats. After her signature style was created, it became common to see thousands of young women dressed like Stevie at Fleetwood Mac and later Stevie's solo concerts. Her look has become so famous that it has spawned a Night of 1,000 Stevies. The Night of 1,000 Stevies is the largest and longest-running Stevie Nicks fan event in the world. 2 events are hosted each year, one in New York City and one in New Orleans, French Quarter. Described on their website as neither a contest nor a karaoke show, Night of 1,000 Stevies is the Stevie Nicks celebration. A riot of shawls, lace, baby's breath, twirling tambourines, and great performances. It wouldn't be a complete podcast without a mention of Stevie's close friend and Fleetwood Mac's bandmate, Christy McVie. Christy McVie passed away in 2022 at the age of 79. Stevie Nicks paid tribute at this time, writing that McVie reminded audiences that love is all around us and to reach and touch in the precious moments of life. Part of my heart has flown away today. Stevie is quoted saying, "She was like my soulmate, my musical soulmate, and my best friend, that I spent more time with than any of my best friends outside of Fleetwood Mac. Christine was my best friend." Stevie, who is currently on tour, ends her sets with a rendition of Landslide dedicated to Christy McVie each night. In an interview with the New Yorker magazine in 2022, before McVie's death, Stevie said that she and Christine had made a pact in the very beginning of Fleetwood Mac that they would never be treated with disrespect by any male musicians in the community. And they stuck to that, agreeing to just walk out if they were ever treated badly. Nicks had talked of her pact with Christine in an interview with NPR in 2013, where she said she told Christy that we have to float like goddesses because that is how we want to be treated. Nicks said that it worked, and that she and McVie were always invited to the party because we demanded from the very beginning. Stevie has been recently quoted saying that Christy McVie's death effectively ends Fleetwood Mac, as Stevie sees no way to go on with the band without her. Aside from the untimely death of Christy and the inevitable end to Fleetwood Mac, Stevie and the band have always been known for wild happenings and rumors about their group and its members. With these floating rumors about, this sparked the creation of the band's 1977 album, Rumors. And here are a few of those rumors about Fleetwood Mac and its members. In a Euronews summary from 2023, we learned that by the time of recording sessions for Rumors came about in 1976, Christine and John McVie's marriage was in turmoil. Press intrusions into their lives and the stress of touring had become too much, and the pair decided to divorce. Not willing to let their dissolution of an 8-year marriage get in the way of their careers, the McVies agreed to continue working together despite barely being on speaking terms. The other half of the band wasn't getting along either. Stevie and Lindsay were arguing regularly, splitting up and getting back together over and over again. For a band with 4 out of the 5 members barely able to stand in the company of each other, it would be natural to assume the long break was around the corner. Instead, they produced one of the greatest albums in history. Speaking of bitter lyrics, 2 of the album's best-known tracks come as a pair due to the history of the band's feud. The song Go Your Own Way was the album's first single. Written by Buckingham, it was a response to Nicks finding new avenues of love outside of their rocky relationship. It quite clearly states how Buckingham felt he'd tried everything to keep the relationship together to no avail. Nicks was going to go her own way. When Nicks heard the track, she was inevitably furious. The direct address against her was hardly a compliment, as the song stated, Retreating to another studio to write, Nicks came up with Dreams. Although the first verse follows a similar attitude to a lover who's tried everything, the song takes a more philosophical approach. Stevie begins the song with, Both songs were hits, though Nicks was probably happy that Dreams was the one that made it to number 1 on the top charts. Outside of the spousal drama and turmoil in the group, the members of Fleetwood Mac were using drugs heavily at this time. Stevie suffered from serious substance abuse issues, and so did her bandmates. Stevie and her bandmates' drug of choice was cocaine. Let me record that one. Stevie and her bandmates' drug of choice was cocaine. In Joe Taysom's article in Far Out magazine, he writes about Stevie's addictions. Prior to the first night of the Rumors World Tour, Nicks had a party with the rest of the band that was wild even by their own Headley proportions. The group celebrated the news the way that they knew how, but the party almost had dire consequences. The celebration almost lasted 48 hours straight, and Stevie Nicks forgot to remove her contact lenses, which wore off in her corneas, almost leaving her blind. Thankfully, the band's tour manager bandaged up her eyes at the venue for the first tour date and prevented her from losing her sight. Stevie talks about how she completely lost control during this period. The disregard for her health resulted in physical injury. The snorting had burnt a hole the size of a coin in the side of her nose. Her addiction was worsening more rapidly than ever before. Even after Fleetwood Mac took a break in 1982, Nicks didn't step away from her heavy drug use, which, if anything, increased under the pressure of pursuing life as a solo performer. Nicks was in a dark place at this time, and her personal life was in turmoil as she watched several relationships break down. In those turbulent times, drugs remained a constant, despite everything else in her life seemingly disappearing. Nicks was told by a doctor that she was on the cusp of suffering a brain hemorrhage. Nicks says that she was told, in no uncertain terms, the next time you do cocaine, it won't be pretty. Nicks states, all of us were drug addicts, but there was a point where I was the worst drug addict. She would later recall, I was a girl, I was fragile, and I was doing a lot of coke. And I had that hole in my nose, so it was so dangerous. In 1986, Nicks would listen to the advice of her bandmates and visit the Betty Ford Clinic in a bid to get clean from coke, which thankfully proved successful. However, the stint in rehab did lead to a 9-year addiction to Klonopin and Valium, as well as other drugs that were prescribed to her by doctors to keep her clean. Nicks came to the realization that by taking the regimented system of prescription drugs, the path was as equally deadly as the one she endured with cocaine. Nicks entered another long rehabilitation stint to purge her body of the prescription drugs and successfully beat that addiction. While Nicks suffered greatly while in her process of getting clean, she began her solo career. It is important to acknowledge that Stevie Nicks is a successful start on her own as she was in Fleetwood Mac. Nicks continued to write songs and formed Modern Records in 1981 to release her solo albums, her first solo album being Belladonna. Belladonna was released in 1981 and is commercially successful and critically acclaimed. The album made number 1 on the Billboard 200 chart and had 4 singles. The Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers penned duet Stop Dragging My Heart Around made it to number 3. The Don Henley duet Leather and Lace made it to number 6, along with Edge of 17 making it to the number 11 spot, and the country-tinged After the Glitter Fades to number 32. Nick's second solo album, The Wild Heart, was released in June of 1983. It went double platinum and reached number 5 on the Billboard Top 200 charts. It also charted 3 hit singles, If Anyone Falls, Stand Back, and Nightbird. Nick's third solo album, Rock a Little, released in 1985, was also a platinum-selling success with 2 hit singles, Talk to Me and I Can't Wait. Stevie Nicks is known as a legend and quite the heroine in the rock community. Her legacy is summed up by her second induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Stevie Nicks' music continues to connect with fans of every generation, following in the footsteps of Janis Joplin, Joni Mitchell, and Jimi Hendrix. Nicks has paved the way for a new rock era. Her legacy is echoed in today's most influential young artists such as Beyoncé, Harry Styles, and Haim. In testament to the power of her music 5 decades into her storied career, Nicks still fills arenas. In this next segment, I'll be interviewing Cassidy Joy about Stevie Nicks and her legacy in rock and roll. Hi, Cassidy. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited to be part of your podcast.
Okay, I'm going to ask a series of questions about Stevie Nicks' legacy and her influence on rock music. The first question I'll ask is, why has Stevie Nicks remained so popular as a recording artist?
I think there's a lot of reasons for her popularity. I think one of them, she's just so magical in her artistry. I feel like the legacy of Fleetwood Mac is a big one. I feel like that's still really popular with people, and I don't know, like when I think of her, I think of being free and being open and almost like the hippie type of, I know she was in the 70s and that was kind of coming to like an end there, but I do feel like she brings this sort of like counterculture freeness through her music.
For sure. She has such a air about her music that just, I don't know, it resonates with a lot of people, and over that genre, over the rock genre, it definitely does have a different impact than most artists. Okay, and just to ask the next question, so what do you think is Stevie Nicks? Nope. Next question I am going to ask you is, what do you think is Stevie Nicks' best song?
Okay, so this was a rough one for me to think about because I just feel like there's so many. She just released so many amazing songs that I feel like it's hard to choose what her best one is.
She's had a long, long career in music.
Right. I think, like, personally, I really like Edge of 17.
Yes.
On Spotify, it's her most popular song. I will say that's a basic pick. Like, I'm not going to come in here with some obscure, like, choice.
No, but it's good. No, it's wonderful.
But, yeah, that one's, like, a good, almost, like, coming-of-age song. And, like, you're, like, taking the world by storm. But, like, with Fleetwood Mac's, like, one of my personal favorites would probably be Dreams, another popular one. Yes. But I always would sing that at open mics when I was doing that.
Oh, wait, that's
so
a good one.
I don't know, I enjoy that. It's really popular. Like, everybody knows what you're singing, and nobody's ever tired of hearing it. That's a good pick for open mics.
That is true.
Yeah.
I feel like that's one of her, like, most notable songs for sure, that or Rhiannon, or like...
Oh, I was going to mention Rhiannon, because also that one is one that really makes me just want to, like, be free, like, I'm going off, you're dancing in the woods or something, like, something just... Yeah, I don't know, she has so many good songs. Landslide's another one that I really like, but I can't always listen to it because it makes me emotional, it makes me want to cry, sad. Like... I don't know, that's such, like, a change song, like, I really associate it with, like, saying goodbye to something.
Yes.
And I don't know.
No, I feel that. It's very, the best way to describe that song is just, like, you're realizing that things are changing, but, like, it could be a good change, but it also could be a bad change, but it's so relatable to so many people on different levels, but.
Right, yeah. And it's, like, a change that there's, like, sense of finality there. Is that the right word? Yeah. There's a sense of finality there in the song. Like, this change is happening, and you're not going back.
That's the best way to describe it, too, is, like, finality of kind of whatever phase or thing that's going on that, like, you're representing in that song. That's really good. Okay, and my next question is going to be, what do you believe that Stevie Nicks' legacy will be?
Okay, that's a big question because, like...
Feel free to take your time.
Yeah, her legacy. I mean, okay, this might be going off on a tangent, but I was reading up on her before we did this, this little podcast, and she said something like, oh, I've never been, like, a witch. Like, everyone associates me with being, like, a witch or something, or doing magic, or casting spells through my music, and she was like, I never intended that. She said she just wore black all the time because it was easy or something like that. And she was like, I did not intend for that to be, like, her. I saw this in an interview of hers. And I was like, whoa, because I always, like, associate her with, like, being magical and, like, being mystical and wondrous. And, like, you might be someone who could be described as eclectic, maybe, you know? Yes. But I feel like eccentric, yeah. Yes. And I feel like even if that wasn't her intention, I do feel like that's what a lot of people associate her with. Mm-hmm. And I think it does resonate with her in a way. I think she just didn't want to be associated with, like, the occult. So I think that's maybe more what she was meaning. But I think the energy and the vibe of being just untethered from things, I can see that being a legacy of hers. But also, like, she was a independent rock and roll artist. Like, not that you don't see it a lot, but she is respected in a way that I'm not sure every female rock artist can say they've been respected. I think a lot, get overlooked and not respected in the industry as someone who is just a rock artist. They're maybe put into, like, a female rock category, but yes. I think she holds her own.
Another question would be, what's one fun fact that you know about Stevie Nicks?
I know that she has a hole in her nose from all the cocaine usage. So that's kind of sad, but also, like, interesting. Yes. That's just something, like, that's stuck with her from it. Like, that's, you know.
It's like her everlasting memory.
Yeah, right. Like, she can't escape everything.
Her drug abuse, yes.
Yeah, it's always with her. But, yeah, that's interesting. She did so much that happened.
Yeah.
That's a good question for you to ask me. I think I would ask how she maintained any level of professionalism in Fleetwood Mac. I think because I read somewhere, I think her and it was Lindsay, right?
Yeah, Lindsay.
Okay,
Buckingham.
so her and Lindsay were having problems when they entered the band originally, but they'd been working so hard on their goals and their dreams that they were like, we're putting this aside and we're gonna join this band. And of course, everything kind of, it got messy. It got really, maybe she had like a healthy level of detachment. Maybe they were just on a lot of drugs and it didn't bother them because of that.
Sounds more like that.
Yeah, honestly, but like I just feel like in that situation, like with so many different relationships being thrown around and just ties to people, I just feel like I couldn't maintain like my own peace in order to make good music. Or maybe that's why. Maybe that's why they made good music, is because it channeled those emotions. But I would just ask her how she managed being in Fleetwood Mac with all the craziness that happened there.
Really, one can only wonder. Well, thank you so much, Cassie, for being a part of this interview. With that being said, thank you all for listening to How She Moved the Music Notes. My name is Tila Pizzatella, and tune into the next episode where we will be discussing Lauryn Hill and her influence on hip-hop. Goodbye.